there's a tension between individualism and notions of collective value, and much of your conversation and your writing falls on the side of the collective, and our commitment to individualism, at least under most of your framing, seems fairly toxic, and we've become atomized with it, and digital technology has enabled that, and really enabled the worst tendencies of people not to make social connections with their neighbors, or with even we even lose contact with our good friends. I could never remember the day. I never experienced the day when people would just show up at the front door for a visit unannounced. Supposedly that world used to exist, but I certainly remember when people would just pick up the phone and call you unannounced. Now most phone calls in my world get set up, they get scheduled by email or text, and just a cold call, even from a friend, is often surprising. It is sort of analogous to somebody just ringing the doorbell. So, how do you view this tension? Because most people who are looking at this through a political lens, certainly in the center of our politics, see that there's a kind of ethical primacy to the rights and freedoms of the individual. And whenever we begin to subvert that focus and sacrifice individual liberty to the state or the collective, that those are situations where, in moments past, where we've really seen the worst ethical lapses politically, where just the government has just ground people in its gears, whether those are socialist gears or fascist gears, it doesn't really matter. How do you resolve that tension?
I mean, I'm not concerned with, quashing the rights of the individual so much as promoting the right of assembly. I feel like that's what we're losing, is the right or the opportunity of assembly. So, when I have the right as an individual to gather with other individuals, and without that, then my individuality is worthless. So when I look at the way that FDR and the Levitt brothers and psychologists worked to develop Levittown, it's a one of the first suburban tract housing areas in Long Island. They were specifically looking at, how do we prevent the men from congregating? They were concerned about all the veterans returning from World War II, and that they would gather and have labor organizing, and just men drinking together, whatever it was. They created an intentionally desocial community. So, I mean, that's infringing on my right as an individual to find the others. When Uber doesn't have a chat function on their app for drivers to talk to other drivers, there's no person next to you on the gig assembly line anymore. You don't find them. You are isolated. You're not getting to express what I would argue is a majority of your individuality. But in terms of the sort of the cultural emphasis, I think it goes back and forth over the ages. So, in medieval times, maybe people were too much a part of their community. When you ask someone, until certainly the 14 or 1500s, where's your home, or what is your home? They thought of the word home as their town that they come from. My home is Venice. My home is this. Not my home is that structure, that house that I have over in Queens.
When you have to sleep with your children into their teenage years, and also your farm animals, the collectivizing instinct has gone too far. So we're all glad it's not the 14th century.
Yeah, but the Renaissance really did invent, and it was a beautiful thing. The original humanism was about, the Vitruvian man. That sort of, it was a celebration of the individual and who we are, and all of our devices and arts were about, perspective painting was about the perspective of the individual. The Codex as a book was about a person sitting alone in his study reading his book. So much of it was about the individual emerging from the crowd. But that individualism has been, I feel like it's reached its endpoint, that we fully got it in American consumerism. You're the one. You deserve a break today. And because in the 1950s and 60s, marketers found out you sell more things to an individual than you do to someone who has friends. You're not going to sell fashion blue jeans to someone who already has a girlfriend because he doesn't respond to that commercial that says, buy these jeans and you will get laid. He's already getting laid. And that's why they wanted us to be, and they did, isolated, alienated individuals who connect to one another through products and never directly. So I'm not saying we should get rid of individuality at all, but that one of the most enlightened expressions of one's individuality is being able to experience intimacy with others. So I'm looking for, gathering places. I'm looking for new ways of establishing solidarity, even across digital networks. And that I feel like that's what people are more hungry for than they are the sort of the digital womb of slipping on virtual reality goggles and going out there.
So, what are the examples of success on that front? I mean, is Burning Man one of these cases where the straitjacket of digital atomism has been thrown off, and we've experienced some new? I say this as somebody who has never been to Burning Man, but is this an example of success, or is this something that is slowly getting perverted by these same trends?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like what happened to the internet and what happened to Burning Man are kind of the same thing. Here are these people, they're going to gather in this new way, and there's not going to be any money, and we're all going to just be together and exchange value and celebrate and have this, kind of slightly tongue-in-cheek pagan mass ritual at the end. And it becomes, now there's, like the Google Pavilion and people come in giant trailers and, and they're G5s to get there. It kind of became a parody of itself in some ways. But I think that urge is there. I think the for better and for worse, the urge of all these co-working spaces is, people who've been atomized by their computers wanting to get back together, and it's like when I read the text on like a WeWork website, half of me is going, right, they really got it. And half of me is thinking, oh my God, I'm so afraid of a new, corporation defining our new cultural space as a workspace. That's who we are. But I do see it. I mean, I think we see it not at scale, which is part of the beauty of it. I do think that young people in particular are starting to want to just hang out again. I think that we are reifying some of that. We saw it in Burning Man. We saw it in Occupy. You see it to some extent in the rave movement or electronic dance music, which is still around. But I'm doing events now, and I'm sure you do too. I mean, that thing you did with Jordan Peterson, you say we're going to have a conversation, and then bam, what was that? 5,000 people showed up in 24 hours to come be there. They could watch it on YouTube later, but they want to be together at something. So I do think there's this urge to commune is ascendant.
Yeah, it would be interesting to. Yeah, I'm continuing to do live events like that. I haven't thought of a way to use digital technology to really amplify the value of doing those live events, because I'm aware of the fact that people really do want to get in the same room together, and there's something that they're missing even when they have this expectation that they'll always be able to watch it on YouTube or listen to the audio. But yeah, I haven't had the brilliant idea that allows for it's kind of come back to this concept of scales. Like there's a scarcity. There's just a natural scarcity to a live event, and you want to be able to allow more people to get value from it, but also you want. I mean, there's just something alienating about showing up at an event with thousands of people and there being no context to ever meet anyone new. You just kind of, it's almost like going to a movie. You all go to the movie and then you all leave the theater and you have your private response to whatever you experienced. I guess everyone jumps online and begins talking about it, but I feel like there's some bright idea that has not been had with respect to how to make live events of the future more connecting for people.